Welcome. Welcome to the show called A Crown of Courage. The reason why we're doing this show today is to show how courage is so powerful in the face of adversities. With our adverse world today, we truly need courage. My name is Ethel Gardner, and I would like to talk about my personal story in the wake of courage. Today, I would like to explain. I am a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a community leader, and I'm also an author. I have a beautiful foundation called the Kennedy Austin Foundation located in the city of Pomona, California. And I wanted to come on and talk about some very, very powerful topics that's really kind of in our world today. You know, I came from very humble beginnings. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how you can really overcome fear, you can overcome trauma, you can overcome any adverse effect in your life with courage. And so I wanted to tell you today, again, about my story with trauma growing up as a little girl. First of all, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I had 9 siblings. We were born and raised in a very extreme poor city. I didn't know what I was going to do as a little girl. I didn't know where I fit in. I was very, very young, and I used to have these dreams of being a beautiful princess. But very shortly after that, my dreams kind of turned and they were tainted into another direction, and I didn't know what that was. You know, growing up, my mother had 10 children, and one day, in a blistering storm, she walked out the door on all 10 of her children, and we never saw my mother again. You know how heartbreaking that was for me as a little girl? She had 7 daughters and 3 sons, and I was the second oldest in the family. What were we going to do? How do you navigate through that process of your mom just walking out and leaving you as a child? It leaves you with these holes of abandonment and rejection. I didn't know it at the time, but my father, a single father, he grew up himself very impoverished in a state that was extremely racist. But he had 10 children, and my father's quest for life was, if my mother can birth them, then why can't I take care of them? And so that's what he did. That day, when my mom walked out on all of her children, my father stepped up to the plate and he asked me, would I help him with his children? My father had no idea at the time. What he did to me was he separated me from the rest of my siblings, which later on in life caused great division and contention and strife. And so at that time, I said yes to my dad because I did not want to disappoint him, and I did not want our family to go into these foster care systems. And so at 8 years old, I made the decision to become mother to my 8 siblings. And I tell you, it was a rough time, but with courage, but with integrity, holding on to that childhood dream that one day I would be a beautiful ballerina. It kept me motivated to move life forward. Was it easy? Absolutely not. I had days where I just did not even want to live anymore. Again, we grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, extremely impoverished. There was nobody at the time that could help us. My father was a very prideful man, very stubborn man, but very loving man. His love language was not to tell us that he loved us, or he didn't hug us, and he didn't tell us that we were pretty or that we would ever be anything. His love language was just to provide a roof over our head and to make us feel as safe and secure as we possibly can get. And that, to me, was my hero. Somebody that cared enough about me to step up to the plate and make me feel secure. As time went on, as a young woman growing up, the holes in my heart of abandonment, wondering why my mom left. Was it my fault that she left? What happened to her? She never came back. There was never any contact with her. My father very rarely spoke about her. It's like she didn't even exist in the world. And here I am playing this mother role, and I'm just a young girl. So why are we talking about courage? And why are we talking about courageous acts that we need to have in this world, in this dispensation? You know, it was very, very important to me to show my siblings that I had no fear, when deep down inside, fear was my motivating factor. I became afraid of everything, and I hid it so deep down inside. I remember when I was about 9 years old, I had to stand on chairs and with these big, huge pots and cook spaghetti because it would stretch and it would last for the whole day for all my father's children. And I remember crying a lot, saying, God, where is our help? How come someone doesn't come to help rescue us from this life of hell, I thought. But the only thing that I could do is hold on to that dream of this little girl becoming a beautiful ballerina one day. And I could sing, and all I'd like to do is to sing songs of joy and deliverance. I was just a kid myself. And all of a sudden, going to school, I remember people talked about us. They would call us names because we were so poor. I remember my brother not having a coat. We're talking about in the winter, in the Midwest, in Ohio, where it's blistering cold out there. But guess what? We made it through. We made it through. We had a bond that was unbreakable. And we told ourselves, and we told each other, we would get through this. And I would look at my father sometimes. You could see the weariness. You could see the disparity. You could see how he was wounded inside, that he didn't have anybody to help him take care of his children. But he had enough courage to keep us together. And that is one of the reasons why this show is so vitally powerful and important, because courage will launch you to your next level in life. Growing up, as I became a teenager, I wanted somebody to tell me that I was pretty. I needed somebody to tell me that I would make it. I wanted to have a boyfriend. I didn't know what anything was. We had no one to tell us anything, so we had to learn by trial and error. But let me tell you, sometimes those are the best life's lessons that you can ever have. I grew up. I became a teenager. I was still mother to my siblings. I was extremely overprotective, but guess what I did not know? I was very, very angry. I was so angry at my mom, even though I didn't know her, nor did she know me. But I had this hole in my soul, and I wanted better for my life. And all of a sudden, those dreams of this beautiful ballerina became dust. Every time I would see my vision or my dream, it would just start crumbling and crumbling and crumbling away. And one day, when I opened my eyes, that dream of this beautiful ballerina was gone. It was no more. And I felt my life was absolutely over. You know, I had this opportunity at one time to be a ballerina, to be a beautiful singer, but I had to long suffer with my father and my siblings. And so I gave it my attention. I gave it 100% of who I was at a very young child. It framed my life, it framed my destiny, and it framed where I was going. Until I got 15 years old and I met a man. He was so much older than me. But for the first time in my life, somebody told me, "Hey, pretty girl," and I go, "Wow, is he talking to me?" I had never heard that in my entire life, that I was pretty, that I was anything. But guess what? This guy that called me pretty would turn my life into a living nightmare. You see, I was so eager to have that hole in my soul filled with something, anything. I needed to feel, and he gave me a feeling. And all of a sudden, one day he invited me out to go to his friend's house. I'll never forget. It was an ice cold November afternoon. And I snuck out of the house and I went to his friend's house. That day turned into one of the worst days of my life. You see, on that date, I had never experienced sex before. And he decided that he was going to violate me, and he did. What do you do? What do you do? Who do I tell? Where do I go? When that happened to me, I was devastated. But guess what? I ran home. I didn't tell anyone. And I buried it deep, deep down inside of me. This guy came back to my house the next day as if nothing ever happened. You know why? Because he saw the disparity in us. He saw the misplacement. He saw the struggle. And he figured, nobody's going to ask her anything. Look at their situation. Look at their life. Look at the legacy. There's nothing there. So he felt he could violate me over, and guess what I took it as? Love. He loves me. He didn't mean to hurt me, but there was absolutely no love involved. And through this one man, I got pregnant and had my first child at 17 years old. Just a child myself, not knowing anything about love, not knowing about family, family values, boundaries. Here I am with a child. And my father accepted this little girl like it was one of his own. He became not only the grandfather, but a father figure to my daughter. And I finally decided, after my siblings had grown up, it was time for me to find a place. And I literally married this man, a man who violated me, a man who treated me like I was nothing, a man who would beat me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because I wasn't a person. I became his possession. Yes, the same little pretty girl that he called me was the one that he would not even let me wear lipstick because he didn't want anybody looking at me. So you see how life's events can change and can change the essence of who you are inside if you allow it to. And I moved on this journey. And I navigated myself through this path. But I always had this ray of hope inside because I watched my father struggle to take care of us. I watched my dad never saying he loved us, but the love language was, be the best people, do what you can do, be kind, be generous, be courteous, and be givers. That was what my father would say to us. And sometimes I would watch my dad, and he would have this huge garden in this place that we live. And the garden was not for only his children, but it was a community garden. And I would get so angry. I would be so angry. Why are you having a community garden when we are the ones that's suffering the most? But you know what I did? I watched him, and I learned from him. And even when I left my father's house, and I went to my own house, after I got married and had my first daughter, I had a second daughter. And I watched my father. Do you know, when my youngest brother turned 18 years old, without question, my father left this earth. What happened? What was I going to do? My hero was gone. I had nowhere to go, no one to talk to. He left this earth because he felt his job and his purpose on earth was complete. And now you're going to have to use every ingredient that I've ever shown you, and you're going to have to make life for yourself. What do you do when life is in reverse? What do you do when you have no ingredients or you think you don't? I got married, I long suffered, I cried, and I prayed. And I tell you, it was hell to be in this relationship. But I felt I had no other options, and so I stayed. You know what I did? I found friends in the community, and I would ask older women about relationships like that. But guess what? Everyone in our community was being treated like that, mishandled, beat, raped, sexual abuse. It was all there. And so it was very common. So what did the older women tell me to do? Stay. As long as he's providing a roof over your head and he's feeding you and he's taking care of the children, you're strong enough to take that. But was I strong enough to take it? I found out that my spirit, little by little, was being crushed, and I didn't know what to do. Today we're talking about courage. Do you have courage? Do you know what courage is? Courage means taking baby steps at a time to do one courageous act at a time. Even if you don't know, there's something inside of us that will tell you, do this or do that. Don't do this or don't do that. But courage comes and it fills you almost to the brim of your life to tell you, you're going to make it. Don't give up. Don't give up. And let me tell you, in my story, I did not give up on that marriage because you know why? I felt I needed to save him. How could you save a person that don't want to be saved? But you know, growing the way I did, going through what I went through, I felt that was my plight in life, to be punished forever. Because after all, my dad is gone, my siblings are gone, and it's just me. You see, I learned as a little girl how to nurture people. I learned as a little child how to take whatever was dished out to me because nobody taught me boundaries. No one taught me how to say no. No one taught me that I was good enough. And these are the things that I had to learn on this journey. We're talking about courage. We're talking about life after loss. We're talking about the opportunity to rise above and to really get to that point in life that you can make a difference. I took my 3 small babies and I moved to California because I had a sister that lived out here. Listen, I had never been out of the city. I had never been anywhere. And to leave Ohio, to come 3,000 miles away, that was fear in the face of opposition. And how would I get away from him? Who would help me? I just couldn't walk out the door. Remember, I'm not a person, I'm a possession. So what do you do? What do you do? I made a decision. One day, laying in this bed, I said, I have 3 children. I know what it feels like to live without a mother. I know what that feels like. I know that void. I know that hole. And I decided to take my children and move to California. I did not know what to do, where to go, who to talk to. But I knew at that point in life that if I did not make the action of courage in the face of adversity, my children would be just like me without a mother. And I could not take that risk. So I planned. Remember, I never went to school, never. I went to school maybe once or twice when I was 8 or 9 years old. After that, school was done for me. I was too busy taking care of my family. But this particular day, I made an outstanding choice that I was going to get out of that relationship and take myself and my children to safety. And I did that. I had one friend who was absolutely not afraid of him. And she said to me, if you have the courage to leave, I'm going to help you. And I said, please help me. Guess what she did? She kept her end of the bargain, and I backed out. No, I can't, I said. And she says, you have no choice. You have absolutely no choice. And so the day that I was going to leave everything that was familiar to me, to walk out and to start a new life, I picked up my children and I ran to this lady's car. I had no money. I had nothing. The only thing I had was one opportunity to get out alive, and I took it. That narrow space, like squeezing the last bit of toothpaste out of that tube, that narrow space. And when I got there, I said, if I can do it, if I can get myself to the point to walk out, then I can help other people be that, do that, and go there. And I remember my friend taking me to the Greyhound bus station. I didn't even have money to get on the train or the bus. She gave us the money. I had no milk. I had no money. We had nothing. But I had to get out. I had the faith to go. And I can just hear my dad's words in the back of my mind. You're going to make it. And I looked around at my circumstances and I go, no, I'm not. And I kept hearing, you're going to make it. You're going to recover. You're going to overcome. And I got on that Greyhound bus. I had no idea that it was 3,000 miles away from Cleveland, Ohio. And when that door closed, there was a part of me that said, oh my God, and oh my God, I can't believe that I took this courageous act to get on that bus for freedom, and I did it, and I'm so thankful. On that journey, coming to California, I didn't know what I was going to do. My son was 2 months old. I had no milk, I had no money. My children, every time that door would open, and people would come in and out, and I would just sit all the way in the back, and I would just cry. And I would look up to heaven, and I would say, Dad, I need your help. I don't know what I got myself into. Maybe I should just get off here and go back, because I don't want my kids to die of starvation. And I myself was so used to it. It had become something that I was very familiar with, not eating. And one day, driving through a town, there was a young lady and her mother that took that bus every year at the same exact time. You see, I can feel emotions welling up in me right now, because it's just human acts of kindness. And that young mother saw me and my children at the back of that bus, never getting off, my children crying now. That mother and her daughter got off. They came back with all of this food and milk and diapers and candy and everything. And I just looked. Listen, when you're in a place that you're always giving, you don't know how to receive sometime. And I said, no, no, thank you. She goes, this is not about you. And I looked, I go, oh, okay. She goes, I have watched you. I have watched your children. She goes, you're a young mother. I don't know what you're running from, but I am here to help you. You see, I am a healer for someone else because of what I went through, and so are you, if you allow yourself to. That lady and her daughter got off on the very next time out of that door, and I never saw them again. But they gave me so much that lasted the whole entire trip. I was so eternally grateful that I had made the decision to take the risk, to have courage, to leave that relationship, to leave my home state, to leave everything familiar to me and find a new life for myself. And that's what I did. And I'm so eternally grateful. And I can still recall in my mind, coming to California, I had never seen a place so beautiful, but I did not know that the wounds and the scars from my childhood, I would bring all the way. That very 3,000 miles, it came all the way back. And it wasn't out here, It was inside. You see, the essence of life is inside of us. That vibe that we feel, the vibe that other people feel around us, it's inside. It's not out, it's inside. And so when I got here, my sister had a beautiful home. Her husband was beautiful to her. I'd never seen a relationship like that. And I aspire to be that. My sister said, you're going back to school. We're going to get daycare for your children. Listen, my children were my life. Nobody can have my kids. I can't even let them go to school because we're so dependent on each other. The fear gripped me. My soul was gripped in fear, and I couldn't let them go. And my sister said to me one day, you're in another place. You have to let the old go. Let the past go. And I go, how do you do that? What does that look like? How does it feel? And one day, laying in my sister's beautiful bedroom, I cried out. I cried from my soul. And I said, I gotta let go. But how do you just let go? It's easier to say it, but to actually do it and to step into it, I couldn't do it. But one day, I said to myself, it's time. It's time to grow up. It's time to get yourself in a place where you can heal from the inside out. You know, you're looking at your children. Do they want a sick mother? Do you want to be a mother that can't help your children? Or do you want to be healed? I made a courageous act to be healed. You see, the crown of courage is about taking one courageous act at a time. It's not the absence of fear. It is the ability to navigate your life through the fear. It is becoming vulnerable in the face of fear, even to maintain and hold on to your courage. Courage is what we have. It is acts of taking a step forward, one foot in front of the other. I didn't know that I was a person of courage. I thought I was a person of fear. But after I left Ohio and came to California, I put myself in school to get my GED. That was one of the happiest times of my life. I finally saw my name on a piece of paper that was not negative. Ethel Gardner. Wow, that was amazing to me. It was like a revelation that opened up to me. I am somebody. I am a person. I have a life. I have a name. I have an identity. And that is where my journey started. You see, my friends, we can make excuses for our life, and we do have scars. We have been through. There's things that we have gone through that we haven't told anybody. But I'll tell you one thing. Secrets is trauma within itself if you hold on to it long enough. Just like scars, like wounding. My heart was so broken and fragmented, but I did not know at the time because everything around me when I was in Ohio was so familiar. But now that I'm in California, this beautiful big state, everything was different. I felt lost, but I also felt a sense of unifying with myself, reconnecting. Who are you? What do you like? What do you dislike? I had no idea. And so I came to some truths in my life that I was going to stop blaming my mother. I hated her. I didn't know her, but I hated her for abandoning me, rejecting me, not being there for me, not loving me. And then I got angry at my father because why didn't you talk to us about her? It was like it was a ghost. You never brought up her name. She was never ever talked about. When the conversation came up, he would have this blank look and the conversation would quickly change. I was very, very, very angry. And I had this real soft, comfortable essence that everything was okay. You see, I had to tuck it all in to make sure people felt comfortable around me because I didn't feel comfortable with myself. But I started learning some things. I started applying life. It's like pouring that oil on a wound and rubbing it in and to feel feeling the hurt, feeling the pain, feeling it. I had to feel it in order to know it was there and it was my truth. Sometimes you have to feel the pain in order to move your life forward. We cannot stay in these places and in these spaces and then blame others for not navigating ourselves through it. We have to get up. We have to rise up. We have to tell ourselves our truth, our way. It's hope. It's healing in being honest with yourself. And that's what I had to do. I had to come to some truths. After I got my GED, I was so happy. I was so proud. The next thing I did was I got my own apartment. I had never, ever, ever felt so liberated and so happy. I got a place. I got my children. I finally feel safe. Courage. One small act at a time. You know, my friends, I could sit here and tell you that life has been just this wonderful tapestry, but it hasn't been like that for me. I had to apply. I had to fight. I had to want to win. I had to tell myself, you're worthy. You can do this. How was I going to tell my children that they could do it if they looked at me with my bruises and my woundings to say, no, Mom, you're a victim. You have become victimized. No, I didn't want that for myself. And I tell you, my friend, you know what I did? Do you know what I did after I got my GED and I got my own place and I could walk around and I could look and I can pray and I can feel, oh, I could breathe. I could breathe. I started the journey of journaling. And I wrote and I cried and I prayed. And I would look at myself in the mirror and ask myself, who are you? What is your purpose in life? Why am I here? Why did I go through so much trauma? And I'm still alive. Am I going to bring Ohio to this place? In a place that's liberated? Or am I going to set my sights on something bigger than my woundings and get healed from the inside out? You see, secrets can be trauma if you don't deal with it. And I did not know how to deal with anything. So I sought help. I sought help. I watched my children grow. I got myself back into school. I got my GED. I went to a school and I almost got an AA degree, but I decided I wanted to go into nursing. And that's what I did. I became an LVN. And I love nursing. You know why? Because I'm a nurturer from the inside. I love people and I like to see people well and to go into those hospitals. All I wanted to do was hold the hands of some of the people that were going through. And I could say to them, because of what I've been through, you can get through this. You'll be okay. You'll be fine. And I found out through nursing, I had a voice. I did not have to be silent anymore. And nursing gave me a platform to discover things about myself I had no idea. You see, my friend, in the face of courage, the sky is the limit. One courageous act at a time is all you need. My life, my liberty, my justice for peace was all I thought about. And I wrote and I journaled every single solitary day. It didn't matter whether I had a good day, a bad day, or an indifferent day. I wrote. And I found out I was a pretty good writer. I didn't say I can spell. I said I can write. And I wrote. And I did that. And I would ask people questions. And I would look into certain things. And I would order books. I'm in a new place. A narrow space. But one thing about that narrow space, when you come out of that space, your life will evolve if you allow it to. your life will evolve. And so in this place that I'm in, I decided I was not going to be victimized. I did not have to tell everybody about my horror story with my ex-husband, with my family, with my father, with my siblings. I decided to become a woman of integrity. I decided to tell my story my way in the first person. And that's what I did. It's a journey that we're on. It's a life that you live. And all of these collectibles on this journey, it's like picking up precious stones and precious rocks and things that you can look at and say, this is beautiful. This is not. There's a choice. Life is a choice. And you have to choose. Choose whether you're going to be happy. Choose if you're going to be free. Choose if you're going to be courageous. Choose if you're going to be victimized. Because in order to be victimized, you have to have a victim. And so we have to be very careful in those areas. You see, I didn't make very good choices. I didn't mean to marry that guy. He told me I was beautiful or I was pretty, and that's all I needed to hear because I had never heard the words. It opened up a wide door. Was it a good door? Absolutely not. But there is something that good that came out of it. My children. They came out of it. So it wasn't all bad. I was out of the relationship. I had earned my degree. I was in a new place, in a new space, and I was ready to live out loud, right now, very present. You see, my faith have led me to where I am today. Small acts of courage. It's not that fear is not present, but you don't allow it to block you. You don't allow fear to stop you. And you don't stay in your past. You navigate your way through life in spite of. You see, in the face of COVID-19, in the face of this pandemic, in the face of racial tension, in the face of buildings being burned, and things are going on, even with the fires in our city here in California, you still have hope. You can still navigate through your life and make a choice to choose happiness, choose peace, choose that I'm going to go out of my way to help somebody else that is not as privileged as I am. Let me tell you, in 1992, I'm on this journey and everything is going well. And my only son was this beautiful spirit. He was nothing like his father. And I used to look at him and I would say to myself, wow, he's more like me. He's kind. He's generous. He was a soul that would look out for people. And I loved and aspired to be like that. And one May 31st day, 1992, going on this beautiful football trip, my son that loved me, and he used to tell me all the time, and I loved him, and he had this beautiful future. He was a courageous young man. He was a powerful football player. He was into sports, and he did everything to 100% of who he was because he knew about my life, and he wanted to make his mother proud. But guess what? None of those attributes made me proud. I was proud to be his mother. That's all he needed. But he wanted to add the other stuff to it. You understand? Sometimes we get things twisted in life. We want to make people happy. And sometimes your presence demands change. You can change a whole room. Remember that vibe? If you come in with the spirit of good and encouragement and joy and happiness, and sometimes we have to lay down our stuff in order to help others that are navigating and they're going through. That May Day, and I can call it May Day because it was May Day in my life. My only 16-year-old son was killed in a single car rollover. I was devastated. You see, I could feel that emotion rising up, and it's okay. It's really okay, because now I could feel it. Before I pushed it out, now I welcome it because it's real. It happened. It's a part of my life. I don't engage it to stay. I could feel it, and I can enjoy it, and then I could release it. Because he was a part of my life. He was a part of who I am. He was a part of my journey. But that day, when I got that phone call, guess what happened to me? I was on this high. My life was going so good. Everything was going wonderful. My kids were growing. I was growing. We were thriving. We had this beautiful apartment. And now we get the phone call. What do you do? What do you do when life is in reverse? And people say, your children don't go before you, you go before the kids. So we live life thinking that that system is in place for everyone. And it's not. It's absolutely not. You know what I did when I got that phone call? I sat there for a brief moment and I said to myself, would I be able to live through this? And there was a voice in the back of my consciousness, and it said, you will get through this like you got through everything else. I said, no, this is different. Totally, totally different. And I sat there for a moment in silence, and I pretended that that phone did not ring, that my only beloved child, my only beloved son, had left this earth and left me behind. Do you know the first thing I did? I got on my knees and I cried out. My faith kicked in and I said, God, why? Why? Why me? Was I born to lose? Was I born to lose? Was I born to suffer? Is that my plight in life? Well, guess what? My portion was big. My portion was big. It was huge. And when I sat there, the phone just started ringing. My daughters came in the room. I didn't have to say a word. They just looked at my face and my countenance. They go, Mom, where's Damon? And I said to them, Damon is gone. He has crossed over to the other side. And they looked at me, and I had this overwhelming spirit of peace. I didn't get up, I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just had this, I could feel it right now, this overwhelming spirit of peace. And I got up, and I went downstairs, and I looked up. I went outside, and I looked up. I said, he's gone. He's not in this earth realm. What do I do? What do I do? And the people from the hospital in Las Vegas, Nevada, called me on the phone. And they says, Ethel, your son is in a Nevada hospital. He hit his head, and he's on life support. You better hurry and come because we don't think he'll last but 24 hours. And I said to the lady, I'll be right there. And then I said to her, what is my son doing in Las Vegas? They said, the kids that were on this trip, a football trip, 3 of the boys decided that they wanted to leave early. And so they got in their car. My son was a passenger, and they drove. And they only got a short distance before the driver fell asleep, and my son was ejected out of the car. And they airlifted him to the closest hospital, which was in Nevada. And I said, I'm on my way. Can I tell you, that time that I had to process what was going to happen to me, can I tell you, there was something inside of me that said to me in a still, small voice, this is familiar. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. And I said, shut up the silence. I don't want to make it this time. I want to go be with him. But I looked at my daughters and I said to myself, I remember the pain of not having a mother, and I could not leave my two daughters if I decided to leave this earth and go with my son. You see, every ingredient in life is set up for us in some way possible. Just the fact of having these abandonment issues in my heart, issues of loss, issues of rejection, stopped me from taking my life that day. Stopped me because I didn't want them to feel what I felt as a child. And it couldn't go that way. Every single thing, every single ingredient, it's like beautiful tapestry. If you let it work for us, it will work for us and not against us. It was that very thing in my life that I hated to the core that was now giving me strength. Oh, my friends, I hope you understand. I hope you can feel the power and the essence of what I'm telling you. It's been rough. It's been difficult. It's been hard. Yes, I agree. And maybe you don't have a story like me. It's okay. Do you know the loss of an expectation is trauma? That's trauma. When you expected this and this happened, it's trauma. So I left my house and I went to Las Vegas. That I never cried. I just prayed. And I said to myself, I'm going to see him again. I'm going to see him again. But right now, in this narrow space, I'm going to have to put on courage and strength like I've never done it before. You see, I knew the old me and how to navigate through those issues. But now, this is a brand new territory. What do you do? And this is the way that I summed it up. It's like you're in a foreign land and you don't speak the language. I lost my dad. My mother abandoned me. My husband rejected me. And now I have to deal with the death of my only son. How do you navigate life when life is in reverse? How do you find acts of courage when you don't even know you're going to survive the next day? Guess what you do? That vulnerable place, being vulnerable, even in the face of fear and doubt and worry, to open ourselves up to say, the universe is calling me to this place of healing and hope in the face of adversity and loss. Yes, the crown of courage, life after loss. That is my journey. That is where I parked. That is where I lived. And I saw, when I got to Las Vegas, Nevada, my son laying in that hospital bed. And I said to myself, when I looked at him, honey, get up. Get up, please. Don't do this to your mother. Please, I can take and tolerate all of that, but not this. My son couldn't talk. There was no broken bones. There was nothing. He hit his head. He hit his head, and that was it. But because of my son's physical strength, from being a football player, basketball player, a swimmer, his body was so strong and his heart was so strong, but he was brain dead. And that heart gave me hope that he would navigate through it and push just like I would see him push on the football field. Now is the time to get the goal. Go for the goal, son. Go for the goal. Don't leave me here. That's what I thought. And for 7 days, we were at that hospital. 7 days is the number. 7 actually represents symbolically the number of completion. It's complete. And I was in my hotel room in Las Vegas, and I got a call. Come now, because his heart stopped beating, and he was actually gone. That day, when I got to the hospital, I held his hand, and I said to him, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but I'm going to look at your face and see you for the last time on this side. I pray that I'm going to be okay, but I don't know what tomorrow will hold. I'm going home with your sisters, and I'm going to need the strength, all the strength I can muster to navigate through this part of my journey. Was this my plight to suffer? Was this my plight to suffer and suffer and suffer? Guess what I did? I took the plane home, and when I got home and walked into that house, I looked around, and everything was in its proper place, but I was different. I was different. I looked at things like this journey, everything was so familiar, and yet everything was so unfamiliar to me. You know why? I became a different person at that very moment. Let me tell you, I had opportunities in this journey with my son to give myself every excuse there was to fail, to quit, to be victimized, to give up, or to just not care anymore. I had the right, and people told me, yes, you do. I wanted to die, and people said, yes, we understand if you did. We understand. But what they didn't know was my past literally prepared me for my future. You see, I had been in those places. I knew what things looked like. I knew what things felt like. Was I going to give up now? Was I going to just roll over and die? I wanted to. Yes, I did. But I decided not to. I sat there and I got a journal and I started writing. And I remember the tears from my eyes. The force within me was so strong that the tears weren't hitting the paper. They was boomeranging and falling all over the floor. The force and the power inside of me, the anger and the grief. But I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And I said to myself, one day you will be able to talk about this journey. You will become a healer for someone else in their journey because of what you've been through. And isn't that what life is all about? It's a mirror. Life can be a mirror. For you can be someone else's hero with all of the things that you have been through. Look at what we're going through in our world right now. This pandemic, COVID-19, all the lives that have been taken, the fires, wars, rumors of wars, all of the stuff that's going on in life. We can always find an excuse not to do anything, to navigate, to go hide, not to show up. But you gotta show up. You gotta come out of that place where you're so complacent and nobody can see you, but we know you're there. What do? You see, women like me, I never knew my strength. I never knew my worth or my value. It took trauma. It took grief. It took loss. It took rejection. It took abandonment. And it took a life of zero love. You see, all I ever wanted in life was love. That's all I've ever wanted, just love. but there was no one in my life to tell me they loved me. There was no love. It was one battle after another. And so now, on the journey that I'm on, and my son is gone, and I'm back to the familiar, my house, and everybody's coming in and out, in and out. And all I did, I sat there in silence, and I centered myself, and I had to make a decision. You know the decision that I made? I made a decision that day that I was going to overcome. I was going to overcome. I was going to use this. As bad as it was, as much as I hurt, as much as I cried, and I prayed for God to take the pain, please. Just, I don't want to feel, until I became numb. I couldn't feel anything. Nothing. And one day, I got up. I rose up out of the ashes. I rose up out of the pity and the grief and the sorrow and people telling me, you are going to die. And I said, I'm not going to die. I will live, and I will be a healer in someone else's life. And that is what I decided to do. It was a decision. It was a choice. And not making a choice is a choice made. You see, today, I am a woman of courage. I could speak about courage. Am I perfect? No. But what I am is, I'm here to tell my story, and I want you to know you can have the courage yourself if you apply it. Thank you so much.